Hey there, Gene Ginsberg here. How's everyone doing? I have a very special guest, Jessica Fialkovich from Transworld Business Advisors. How's it going, Jessica?
It's going great, Gene. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We connected with Jessica through a CEO dinner, but we also our companies were both on the Fast 50, the Denver Business Journal Fast 50 list. I thought this would be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about your business, what you do, and share that with my community. So, do you want to talk a little bit about what Transworld Business Advisors does?
Sure. Well, and first of all, congratulations on the Fast 50 list as well, Gene.
Yes,
So
thank you so
big honor.
much. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
congratulations to your company as well.
thank you. So Transworld Business Advisors is a business brokerage firm. And basically what that means is that we're basically real estate agents for business owners. So we help people buy and sell small to medium-sized businesses. And specifically, our office is focused in the Rocky Mountain region. So Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico are our prime areas. We're headquartered in Denver. But yeah, that's kind of the short answer. We help people buy and sell businesses.
Wow, that's very exciting. I don't think I've ever really met anybody who helps businesses to sell their own business.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a broker, or do you work directly with companies, or how does the transaction work typically?
Yeah. So we are the broker in the transaction. So typically we would represent someone selling their business. So they would hire us and we're what you call a full service brokerage. So we help in preparation services, getting your business ready to sell, valuation services, determining what the asking price should be. And then we do the full service of taking it to market, finding and qualifying buyers, navigating this phase called due diligence, which is like an inspection period on steroids. And then obviously negotiating the terms of the deal, and getting the deal done, getting it to the finish line. That's our biggest job, obviously, is we need to find a buyer, but we also need to make sure it closes and gets to the finish line as well.
Sure. And what kind of companies do you typically work with?
Yeah, we work with a little bit of everything. So we have about 20 brokers on our team, and every broker specializes in 2 to 3 different industries. But in general, like our office does a lot of businesses that are, prevalent in the Rocky Mountain region. So we do a lot of B2B service companies. We also sell a lot of companies in the constructions and the trade industries. So everything from general contracting to HVAC to roofing, things like that. And we do a lot of restaurant and retail. So the majority of businesses in the US, especially small businesses, are still restaurant and retail. So that accounts for about 25% of our transactions every year.
And would you say there's a certain size of the businesses that you work with, or is it just all over the place?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So our industry is actually how we niche down is based on size of businesses. So it's a great question. So our company works with businesses that do up to about 20 million in revenue, give or take on the industry. But our average client does about 2 million in revenue. So we truly work with the small business owners. I mean, the smallest companies we've sold have had as little as $15,000 in revenue all the way up to, 20, 30 million in revenue. So a little bit all over the board, but still really in that Main Street small business environment.
Gotcha. And so what kind of company, wants to sell their business when they're only in
Gene,
$15,000
are you still
revenue?
there? I think you froze.
Oh, I guess we'll have to get that part edited out. Hello? Can you still hear me?
All right.
All
There
right,
you
we'll
go.
have to get that part edited out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, so I think I got everything. Okay, it's already still recording. So I think I got everything you were saying, what kind of businesses you work with and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I'll just start with my next question. So what
Perfect.
what kind of businesses typically would want to sell if they're only at $15,000 in revenue? Does that seem kind of low, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it is low, but I think if you look at it, there's a lot of people that want to pursue entrepreneurship, and not everybody, it's not right for everybody. And it's a good thing that we're not all entrepreneurs in this world. Otherwise, it would be pretty crazy. Um, but some people get into business and they start companies, and they're like, yeah, this isn't for me. So those would be like your startup companies that they had an idea, they might have pursued some IP or something like that, and they just got into it and they're like, this is not the right thing for me, or it's not the right opportunity. So we call those asset sales, where a buyer's just buying the assets of the startup company. And it works the same way too on some of our smaller transactions. You might get into a business and it's not for you, or it's not working out, and the revenue starts declining, maybe not all the way to 15,000, but there's also an avenue to sell those businesses too, which is good. I always tell people, a business is always worth something. It's just the tricky part is determining what the business is worth and then going to find the buyer that's willing to pay that.
Gotcha. So question about that, and I'm learning myself because I'm not really familiar with this industry. So, a lot of times I see businesses just close their doors, like, if things aren't working out, or if things are, maybe their revenue is, and, it's too low, or maybe they have, very high expenses compared to their revenue. So, what would be your recommendation? Like, is there ever a recommendation, or would you ever recommend that a business close their doors and not try to sell it? Or do you think that there's always value in selling any business, no matter, even if things are upside down?
Yeah, I think there's always value in at least trying. I won't lie that every business will not sell. Like there'll be a big chunk of businesses that try to sell that are unable to, but I do think it's worthwhile to at least try and sell your business if you have time, especially if you have hard assets like equipment, or say you own a restaurant and you have like this beautiful build out that you've invested time and money into. There's actually a lot of buyers out there that will buy restaurants just for the build out and location, and then they'll change it to their own concept. Same thing in like a B2B service company. You might have a book of business or even a customer list that is worth something to a competitor or somebody trying to get into the industry. It's at least worth trying to sell. The key is how much time do you have? So a typical transaction will take it on average 8.5 months. That's the industry average across all businesses. I'd say you need to give yourself at least 6 months to try in those situations. It's better if you have the 8 to 12 months. But that would be the only time where if someone's like, hey, I only have 30 days, I have to vacate my space. My advice to them then would probably be like, it's probably not going to sell. It's going to be really hard to get that transaction done in time, and closing would be a better option.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting, because I do see that sometimes where businesses just close their doors, and I'm like, but there's probably some value in that business that you're trying to sell. But it's probably just a timing thing. I mean, you get to the point where you only have 30 days left, and you can only keep the lights on for 30 more days, and that's probably not the best planning, maybe.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And it's always worthwhile, like I said, trying. And you can always put your business on the market. When businesses are sold, they're marketed in a confidential manner. So I always use the example, like if we would list a business for sale, we would never say, hey, Starbucks on 6th and Spear is for sale. We would say a coffee shop in Denver is for sale. And then we would vet buyers before we disclose the location.
Sure.
So if you're in a business and you're getting into trouble, or you're thinking you might want out, you can always list the business for sale. Listing it for sale doesn't mean you have to sell it. You can still decline any offer that a broker or anybody brings to you.
Gotcha. So just switching gears a little bit here, but also in the same vein. So what would you say is the biggest challenge in your industry now?
Challenge that we're facing, or that like our clients are facing?
I guess both, either.
Yeah, both either. I mean, one big opportunity that we've been facing for a very long time, I'd say probably coming up on 10 years now, that is going to turn into a challenge at some point, is capital's really well available right now. So there's a lot of loan programs for buying a business. A lot of banks lend through the SBA guarantee program, which has been great. And it's funded a lot of business transactions over the last, like I said, 5 to 10 years. But the flip side of that is that cycle usually only lasts so long, right? So we're on, I'd say, the plateau of the best when it comes to lending and funding. And so one challenge that I'm facing for our office is we're looking for alternative lending sources. And, how do we get deals funded if the major banks decide that they don't want to fund as many business acquisitions?
So is that something that you see a trend in the near future? I mean, would you say there's a downturn in the economy? Because is that a trend in terms of getting capital for, I guess for anything, for your business, for selling, for buying?
Yep. I don't know if it's necessarily an economic trend, but I look at lending as it always ebbs and flows, right? So when you go through a long period of banks lending business loans or lending any loans, right? If there's a big volume of loans that go out, there's usually like an ebb that it comes down and it stabilizes a little bit. So that's what we're preparing for in our office. Is not necessarily a downturn, but it's, you have to look to other sources of lending, because when you become reliant on any one source, and this is if you're buying a business or funding a business or however you're looking at that, if you're ever relying on any one source of funding, you're also reliant if that lender decides they're not going to lend anymore. So I do think it would be more of like a trend or something that you see ebbing and flowing over time, but not necessarily like an economic indicator.
Gotcha. I was just curious because you're on the forefront of the financial industry, so I'm always curious to be like, hey, do you see any trends coming?
Yep.
Being in marketing, you don't always see that until people start or businesses start cutting marketing. That's usually the first thing to go. So I'm always like, how do I get ahead of that so that I can see the trends coming? So speaking, people like yourself who are in finance space, typically see that earlier.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And so, of course, you mentioned that your company was on the Fast 50 list, so congratulations. What are
Thanks.
some of the other recent wins that you've had with your business?
Recent wins. So we're actually part of a franchise network. We're part of Transworld Business Advisors, the franchise network. But our office has been the #1 franchise office worldwide for the last 4 years. So that's been a big win for us. Out of about 250 offices, to be #1 for 4 years in a row has been pretty awesome. We're on the Inc. 5000 list, which kind of triggered that Fast 50. So that's really exciting too. And then personally, I was nominated for the 40 under 40 last year with the Denver Business Journal. So that was great because I wanted to get that 40 under 40 out of the way before I turned 40. So yeah, but some great wins. Our team has been growing and we've added some amazing dynamic people to our organization that I really am just so blessed every day to come to work with.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on all of those things. Inc. 5000, that's fantastic. I mean, all of those wins are amazing, in addition to, of course, the Denver Fast 50 list. So what's new on the horizon for the business? What's new in store for 2020?
Yeah, we're really excited for 2020. We have a few things that we're launching that we're super excited about. The first is a preparation to sell your business course. So it's called Prep to Sell, and it helps business owners get prepared to sell their business about a year to 2 years out. So if you're thinking about selling your business and you're not sure, how do I eliminate deal killers or how do I increase the value of my business and ensure it'll sell? This course addresses that. So that launches in January 2020. We're super excited about that. And we also, we've done some buyer services in the past, but we've never had a dedicated division or service team to that. And we are launching a buyer service team in January 2020, which is pretty innovative for our industry. Most of our industry is focused on the sell side. And we want to go out and educate buyers and teach them how they can acquire a business either for the first time or if they already own a business, buy another business to grow through acquisition. So that buyer services division also launches in January of this year.
Wow, well, that's fantastic. So lots of new initiatives, sounds like.
Yeah.
That's great. So as someone who is a social media buff and uses social media quite a bit, how are you using social media in your business? Is that something that's pretty prevalent, or is that still do you feel like there's still a lot of growth and opportunity for social media in your industry and in your business?
Oh, there's tons of growth for social media in our business. I mean, our business is still a little old school, and most of our clients tend to be of the older demographics. So we rely very heavily on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. We don't do a ton on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that yet. We also launched last year. We launched a podcast called The Deal Board. So we do weekly episodes, kind of behind the scenes of the deal, everything buying and selling, and I co-host that with Transworld's CEO globally, Andy Cagnetta. So we've been using that too and pushing that out through our social media channels. That's been very helpful, but there's still so much room to grow. I mean, we've talked about everything from, TV shows to, just videos, educational stuff. I just think there's a lot of opportunity there, not just for my company, but for our whole industry to educate business owners.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like, with this course that you're coming out, you're trying to educate people about, or business owners about, how to sell their business, so that they probably can get ahead of it a little bit more, instead of just like coming to you and being like, oh, I have 30 days left, I need to sell my business. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yep.
fantastic that you guys are looking to educate the business owners out there. So yeah, sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for social media
Yep.
and content out there. So that's good. I like hearing that, because there's always new things that can be done for these kinds of industries. So it's fantastic.
Right.
And then going back to your business, one of the questions I'd like to ask is, what is one tool that you use that's critical in your business, for you, for your immediate team, or maybe for your global team that you guys have as part of the franchise? Is there one tool that you use that is like critical for you?
Yeah, we have a custom built CRM system that
Hmm.
also acts as almost like an MLS for businesses. So that's like our go-to tool where we can log all informations about the businesses that we're selling, and then we can also that post directly to our website and through all of our for sale channels. So that's super critical. Custom built, like I said, because of all the different fields and things that we use. But we also it is a general tool. We use Slack, which I know is very popular with a lot of organizations, but in our office, there's a lot of conversations going back and forth, and Slack's been the best tool that we've found that helps us communicate on a daily basis when all of us are running around in different locations, showing businesses, talking to buyers. So that's been super helpful.
Yeah, that Slack has been definitely um, a business saver for us, I would say. I mean, just with communication, sending emails back and forth, it just becomes so cumbersome at times. So using a platform like Slack has been such an amazing way to communicate internally with your team.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then the other question that I typically ask is, so what is your prediction for the industry? And that could be anything in your industry, it could be anything related to, I don't know, AI or self-driving cars, or, I mean, you can speak, of course, about your industry, but what do you think is, are we going to be seeing in the next 5 to 10 years as the prediction in the
Yeah.
industry?
So one thing I talk a lot about is the baby boomer demographic. So most small businesses are owned by baby boomers. So if you look at our economy as a whole, about 90% of all the businesses in the U.S. are small businesses, and that there's a lot of different definitions there. But let's just go with they have less than, I think, 500 employees is how the SBA defines it, which is still a pretty big business in my mind. But 90% of the economy is run by small businesses. And over 50%, some studies say up to 60% of those small businesses are owned by the baby boomer generation. So it's going to create some really interesting moves in the next 5 to 10 years, because all of those baby boomers in the next 5 to 10 years will be exiting their business, meaning they'll either sell it or they'll close it. And the other interesting trend is that their children, the millennials, are not as entrepreneurial as them. So a lot of their children don't want to take over as a second generation owner, which has happened in the past to kind of ease that transition. So what I think will happen is there's going to be a ton of opportunities to buy businesses. So if you are a small business owner and you're thinking about growing through acquisition, there's going to be a ton of amazing deals. I mean, we're already seeing them now. Our sales from that demographic have doubled in the last couple of years, and we're seeing that on trend again for this year. So there'll be a ton of opportunity there. I also think there's going to be a lot of consolidation, right? So if you have businesses that are, say, in landscaping, and there's 5 or 6 other landscaping businesses for sale in their market, they have the opportunity to buy all those businesses and consolidate them to a larger company. So I think you'll see a lot of consolidation going on in markets in different industries, just because there's not going to be a lot of solo owned businesses anymore, just because there's a ton of opportunity to buy, but there's not as many buyers in the marketplace.
Interesting. So you're saying that the new generation, or I guess the millennial generation, is not as entrepreneurial? Is it more that they're not entrepreneurial, or is it they just don't want to take over, let's say, their parents' businesses?
It's a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, the baby boomers own what we call like the bread and butter industries of our
Yeah.
economy, like the boring stuff, but it's
Yes.
the stuff. Yeah,
I
it's
was
the
gonna
stuff.
say it's not the very sexy businesses like the tech companies and like the software companies and the new startups. So yeah, I'm wondering, like, it seems like the millennials are pretty entrepreneurial, but it's just like, they're like, probably like, I don't want my dad's landscaping business or whatever.
Yeah, and it's funny. So my husband is the perfect example. So his father owned a business in wholesale seafood in Philadelphia, and he built the business as a second generation business for my husband to take over. My husband's like, I don't want that. I'm going to do my own thing. So I think you see a lot more of that, and it's not sexy industries, but they're tried and true industries, right? No matter what the economy does, like accountants thrive, right? Because you got to file your taxes every year. So it's stuff like that that I don't think the millennials find as sexy right now. They might, I think, grow into that in the next few years. And it'll just be interesting to see if it's timed appropriately with all these baby boomers exiting, or if there's going to be a mass of deals that flood to the market with fewer buyers, basically.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I did realize also, we've talked. I mean, I've talked to other people about this in the past, where a lot of these businesses are owned by baby boomers. I mean, and so what happens now with them retiring or passing away? I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a few different ways. I guess this can all go down, but what happens to the business after that? This is going to be a very interesting trend in what's going to be happening. So, but I also wonder, with all the new technology out there, I wonder like if some of these businesses were just become, I don't want to say kind of obsolete in a way, because the way they used to do business before, maybe like 50 years ago, might not be the way that people want to do business now, just because of the new technologies out there. So that's also going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it is a great opportunity if you think about the millennial generation that are very tech savvy. They can bring a lot of innovation to some of these tried and true industries. And I was at an AI talk, and it was funny because they said, like a lot of service industries won't get Uberized per se, right? Like you're always going to have a plumber come fix your pipes in the house. There's never going to be like a robot that's able to do that, or at least not in
I
our
think
lifetime.
eventually, yes,
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be a robot plumber who comes to the house
Yeah.
and fixes my toilet. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Eventually, but like I think what I've heard with the talks with AI, like not anytime in the near future, maybe not like in at least our working lifetime, right? It's more like this conversational AI that's going on. So there's a lot of value that these tech savvy entrepreneurs can add to some of these tried and true industries. Like even without an AI or robot plumber, there's still a lot of innovation that could happen in the plumbing industry that's not happened. And ever, right? So
Absolutely. I mean, there's going to be a lot of that, like all of these kind of non-sexy industries, like the landscaping industry, the plumbing industry, even like CPAs. I mean, yes,
Yep.
you do need your taxes done, but then I think there's so much like, technology now where you can just like feed all your information to a machine and like it'll spit out your taxes for you
Yep.
without really, maybe a CPA will oversee it, but you don't have to have
Right.
like a CPA poring over books for, hours and hours and days on end. So, I'm kind of curious about how that's all going to play out in the
Yeah.
next 5 to 10 years. So,
It'll be an exciting time. There'll be a lot to watch.
yes, yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, anything you want to add before we wrap up the interview?
No, I just say, thank you again for having me on the show. To all the listeners, thank you for listening. And then if anybody ever wants to get in touch with me, you can reach out on my website is jessicafialkovich.com. And you can find me on all the social media platforms at Jessica Fialkovich as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks again. Congratulations again on all of the wins this year and the Fast 50, the Inc. 5000. So that's amazing. And thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks, Gene.